Peace, everybody. We over here talking about the latest in the Republican drama. For the last few months, we have been forced, I guess you could say, to watch the Republican Party have its debate series. And the reason why I say forced is because there's a way that it's all just a ridiculous spectacle. The Republican party has a nomination process not that different than the Democrat nomination process, although their state by state winner take all model is a little bit different. But the point is, we've been watching it despite the fact that Donald Trump is in the lead. Donald Trump is in the lead. Donald Trump is not even close to losing the Republican nomination right now. You got Tim Scott, you got Ron DeSantis, you got Nikki Haley, you got Chris Christie, right? I mean, you got a very, very, very competitive, it should be a group of people who could make this race very interesting. But instead, and we got Vivek Ramaswamy, of course. And all of these people, all of these people should be formidable opponents to Donald Trump. I'm going to start with the one who just dropped out, though. We'll talk about why this is interesting and problematic at the same time. Trying to adjust this light too. I got like a weird. Um, Tim Scott announced yesterday that he is no longer going to be pursuing the Republican nomination. I'm going to pull up his exact statement because I don't want y'all to think that I'm putting sauce on it or I'm adding stuff that isn't true. So Tim Scott decided to drop out of the race, and what he said is, when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters, who are the most remarkable people on the planet, have been really clear that they're telling me not now. He said, they're not saying they don't want me. They're just saying not now. So, one, I don't know if that's true, Tim. Really? Are they saying not now? What have they ever said to make you think that they want your black behind at all? Would be the question that I would ask. The polls don't suggest it. The data don't suggest it. Anecdotally, there's no evidence of it. The news outlets don't suggest it. It seems very troublesome. Um, it seems very troublesome that this is happening. Uh, but there we go. My lens was a little dirty, so I'm making an adjustment in real time. Shout out to my peoples for letting me know that. Um, so here's here's what's interesting, right? One of the knocks against Tim Scott was that he was middle-aged and single. Middle-aged and single. Tim Scott was seen as somebody who checks off a lot of Republican boxes, right? I mean, here's a guy in his 50s, he's 57 years old. He has been a senator. He's a junior senator from South Carolina. He's been there for almost a decade now. So he's got the experience. He was in the South Carolina House of Representatives and the US House of Representatives. So he's got tons of legislative experience. You can't say he doesn't have any, although it often doesn't matter because, again, Donald Trump may have nothing. He checks off the Republican box of being willing to talk about blackness in the most perverse and pathological ways imaginable. When Tim Scott tells his backstory, he always makes sure to tell you how hungry he was. He makes sure to tell you how impoverished he was. He goes on to tell you all the things that went on in his community that made him dangerous and vulnerable. So, again, white people eat that up. Poverty porn gets eaten up on the left and on the right. Democrats and Republicans love a good black uplift story where they wallow in poverty and misery. But for the Republicans, it's important to say not only were my conditions bad, but my conditions were produced by my community. My conditions were produced by the surrounding black people who were pathological. I'm surrounded by drugs. I'm surrounded by prostitution. I'm surrounded by a lack of commitment to education. He's willing to say and do all the things that Republicans eat up. Larry Elder does the same thing. Larry Elder just didn't get a chance to really pursue the office in a real way. They wouldn't even put Larry Elder on the debate stage, despite the fact that he has been carrying the water for Republicans for decades. But I digress. Tim Scott, he's got the legislative experience. He's willing to say all the right things. He identifies as a Christian, and not just a CME Christian, as they say, Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter Christian. He ain't a part-time Christian. He's an all-day, 7-day Christian down to the socks type of Christian who reflects evangelical values. He says that his life is governed by that. When he talks about his faith, he talks about it the way that most evangelicals on the right talk about it. When Tim Scott talks about his faith, he not just pledges his sort of undying faith in Jesus Christ, but he talks about how it shapes his beliefs around abortion, how it shapes his beliefs around marriage, how it shapes his beliefs around sex. This is a man who identified as a virgin. As a virgin. Can you imagine? He's middle aged in the 21st century, and he's identifying as a virgin. So, as you can imagine, there are lots of interesting contradictions here. There's always contradictions here, right? The people on the right, they will say their Christian values make them pro-life. And for them, pro-life means anti-abortion, because they don't mean pro-life when it comes to ending wars. They don't mean pro-life when it means abolishing the death penalty. They don't mean pro-life when it comes to funding schools. They don't care about those lives. They just mean let the baby live and then let the baby starve. Let the baby get shot by police when he grows up or she grows up. Let the baby be ensconced by food insecurity and structural violence and unnecessary wars. We can do all of that. Tim Scott advocated staying in Afghanistan. He said, if you leave, Al Qaeda will win. He introduced a bill that would deny food stamps to families whose income declined to the point of eligibility because a family member was participating in a labor strike. So in other words, if you go on strike and you lose income, you can't get food stamps because you went on strike. So if you fight for workers' rights, you also don't get it in Tim Scott's world. Why am I telling you this? I'm saying because Tim Scott embodies the contradictions of the Republican. He is a perfect Republican. He's I wouldn't say handsome. He gives a little bit of a Fat Albert character look, but he looks presidential enough. He dresses the part. He talks the part. He's from a southern state. He's an evangelical background, and he identifies as a virgin. That seems to be the ideal kind of platform. And in a country that loves to pat itself on the back by electing black people, or we got a black this or a black that, you think he would at least be in the mix. He thought he'd be in the mix. That's why he ran. He is willing to stand up and say America is not a racist country. Tim Scott stood up and said America is not a racist country. Whew, this man is wild. And this man is ostensibly the perfect person to pursue the Republican nomination for the presidency. But Tim Scott made several moves that failed him. And I'm going to tell you what those moves are. By the way, hit the subscribe button right now. I need y'all to make sure that you hit the subscribe button. I think it's important that we keep independent media going. I have some corporate media platforms, but if y'all want me to be out here speaking the truth courageously, which I will do without the need of corporate sponsorship, then it's really important that y'all subscribe to the channel, allow the platform to grow. Also, if you have questions, I'll take some questions. If you buy a badge, people who buy badges will get to the front of the line. Also, it's really important here, again, to keep this platform going. Hit that like button. For what I understand, the like button makes people stay on the path, toward more people watching the video. I want to make sure we support the platform. I want more people to hear what I'm about to say to y'all, because this is important. Stay with me, y'all. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, I'd love for you to hit the join button, man. If you hit the join button, you get to be part of this family. You get to be part of this channel. You get to grow with us. You'll get special clips. You'll get special access, special chats. And of course, if you buy a badge today, I'll make sure that your question goes to the front. But let's keep building. And I'm gonna get to as many questions as I can before we run out of time. So Tim Scott did a few things wrong. Number one, he refuses to denounce Donald Trump. Now, this is not particular to Tim Scott. Everybody up there, with the exception, really, maybe of Chris Christie, has refused to completely separate themselves from Donald Trump. Nikki Haley will say something like, "Well, Donald Trump is, he was the right choice in 2020, but now we need a new choice." Or 2016, excuse me, but now we need a new choice. Uh, you know, Ramaswamy, initially talked about all this trash about Trump, before he's running for president. And now that he's running for president, he's running from the idea that Trump isn't the right guy. He refuses to pinpoint that argument. It's fascinating to watch how this is playing out. Uh, DeSantis is obviously an enemy of Trump's because he saw Trump as a threat, but now DeSantis has been deflated. Why? Well, because DeSantis ain't a national candidate. He doesn't have the chops. He doesn't have the charisma. He lacks what Trump has, believe it or not. It's a tough argument, but it's a true argument. DeSantis ain't got it, y'all. He's slipping in the polls. Honestly, the dark horse here, the person who might be the presidential nominee, if uh, Donald Trump can't make it, and I mean can't make it, I mean because he'll be in jail, would be probably Nikki Haley. She checks off a lot of boxes. She is willing to do so much. I want to send love to my brother Yasser Khalef for making this massive, lovely, wonderful donation. Daphne Cooper, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining the fam with the subscription. Everybody that does that, yo. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. If y'all don't do it, I still love and appreciate y'all. All I ask y'all to do is hit the subscribe button and keep joining, keep building. But let me keep going, y'all, because I don't want y'all to miss this point. So Donald Trump is winning. Donald Trump has the majority of the vote. And what they're doing is playing scared. They're saying that he's probably still going to win, and I'd like to be vice president. And I can't be vice president if I take Trump down because we know he's a sociopath. We know he's bonkers, and we know he's going to come after us with both barrels, and he won't let up. So I don't want that. Chris Christie don't mind because Chris Christie, one, he's from Jersey. That's how they move. And two, because he's already on Trump's shit list. So he has nothing to lose. So Tim Scott didn't separate himself from the crowd because Tim Scott simply refused to distance himself sufficiently from Trump because he's scared. Another thing that he did, though, he was single in his 50s. 50-some-year-old man single shouldn't be a problem if you're a Christian. He says, look, I'm a Christian. I'm a virgin. I don't have a girlfriend. So I shouldn't be having sex. I don't have a wife, excuse me, so I shouldn't be having sex. But the rumbling started. I'm telling you this not from what I read on the news. I'm telling you what I know from being a journalist, being on the campaign trail, talking to insiders. The rumblings have been for a couple of years that Tim Scott could be gay. Oh, I am not saying Tim Scott is gay. I'm not saying I believe Tim Scott is gay. I'm saying I don't care if Tim Scott is gay. I have no idea. I have no desire to comment on Tim Scott's sexual identity at all. I'm pointing out, though, that the idea that a candidate who might be gay could not be successful with a nomination is telling. I wonder what people like Caitlyn Jenner are thinking when they align themselves as Republicans with the party that won't even allow a queer candidate at all. Just saying. Something to think about. So Tim Scott runs without a girlfriend ostensibly. But the rumblings are starting, and people are saying, well, we need him to, if he has a shot, because we do want him in the race. We definitely need a black guy in the race. So what are we going to do? Well, they say, well, talk about your girlfriend. So he mentions he has a girlfriend. He says, well, I do have a girlfriend. I remember being in ninth grade. I ain't had no girlfriend. Eighth grade, I ain't had no girlfriend. Growing up in the hood, people wouldn't say you ain't got no girlfriend. They would say you don't get no, I mean. And you be like, I got a girl, man. She just don't know. No, she just don't go to the school. No, she don't. Or if around the way, you be like, yo, she don't go to my hood. I mean, she ain't from our hood. She live on the other side of town. She live up the street. She live, if I'm in West Philly, she in South Philly. If I'm in North Philly, or she up my area. You just don't know her, right? That's how we do in Philly. Because the idea was, I didn't want people to know that I just wasn't on that level yet. I couldn't get no girls yet. I couldn't get no, yet. And that was basically what it seemed like Tim Scott was going through when he says, well, I have a girlfriend. Y'all just haven't seen her yet. It's basically like she goes to a different school. It's like the TV show. She's a really hot model, guys. You just don't know her because she's so busy modeling that you just don't get to see her, right? So he had a girlfriend that went to a different school. Now, according to his campaign insiders that I spoke to personally, they never heard of him. Again, I don't care. I don't know if he's gay, if he's straight. I don't care. He says he's straight. Fine, you're straight. I don't care. My only point is he's in a party that won't allow him to be a viable candidate if he's not. That's the part that I find troublesome. So it continues to follow him, and his numbers keep dipping. His numbers aren't dipping just because he is uh doesn't have a girlfriend that people know about, because he's not married, people don't know about. And as much as they love them Christian values on the right, they be bullshitting, man. Let's be honest about this. Those evangelicals lined up to vote for Donald Trump, who got more wives, more baby mamas, more sexual harassment cases, more charges. I mean, everything. I mean, Donald Trump is a stereotypical Negro. He got baby mamas, he got multiple kids, he got criminal charges, he got a fat ass. Everything that you would say about a black person, stereotypically, he got that. And you know what? You know what? We still vote for him. They still sign up for him. You know why? Because they don't really care about them values. They care about their agenda getting passed. And so Tim Scott can't do that for them. And Tim Scott thought that because he could play the white community's game, that he could play the Republican narrative in his own mind so much that he could spit it out like a puppet, that he could win and he could outwhite the white people. Guess what? They reminded him, you still black. So finally, while getting 1%, 2%, 3% in the polls, despite the fact that he's saying all the pathological stuff that they want him to say about black people, despite the fact that he's echoing all the most horrific draconian policies in the world, despite all of that, he still couldn't get no votes. So what does he do? In the last debate, by the way, y'all hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. Please sign up for a membership. Please grab a badge. I'll make sure I catch your question. Nobody has any questions right now, so that's all love. But again, Yasser Khalif, thank you so much. Love you, appreciate you. Daphne Cooper, I appreciate you. You are our first member ever, so I will never forget you, I promise. What does he do? He brings out his girlfriend. He brings out his girlfriend. And she is straight out of Central Casting. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Well, you knew she wasn't going to be black. Nothing this man has said or done will make you think that his significant other would be black. Now, I happen to believe that black people should date black people, that black people should marry black people. That's my personal belief. But I don't begrudge anybody who has interracial relationships. I might have a critique of it. I might wonder where it comes from. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to dismiss you or throw you away because you have an interracial relationship. But the question for me is always, what happens when you say you have an interracial relationship that's just by love, that's just by happenstance, but they all white. They all look the same way. It makes me wonder if you love yourself. It makes me wonder if you love your people. That's the question for me. Not can you have love for people across the human family, but do you hate yourself? And is that reflected in your dating choices? Dating choices are political. So the fact that he popped up with a white woman wasn't surprising because that's his politics. But he didn't just pop up with a white woman. He popped up with a blonde white woman. I won't get into her aesthetics or her appearance. That's not, I don't think that should be the point. I will say, though, that black men often, when they do date exogamously, when they date white or when they date outside of their race, black men, we often don't elevate aesthetically. We often make choices that I might think we wouldn't make. We're much harder on black women than we are white women. Some black men who just have any white woman, they don't care what she looks like. That's what I'm saying. I'm not dissing this woman. I'm just saying it's a very interesting and predictable choice that he made. So then you got to ask yourself, shout out to Muhammad Askari, man, for joining the fam and getting the badge. The Republican Party was unimpressed for two reasons. One, and then I'm going to leave y'all alone. One, they don't believe you. You need more people, to quote the great Jay-Z. Rest in peace to Prodigy. He said, look, you need more people. Suddenly, this woman who you've been hiding for a year, you just pop out right when you're about to get booted out of the race. Before you said you didn't put her up because it wasn't serious enough. Did the relationship get more serious when your polls dropped to single digits? When they dropped to one digit? When they dropped to one integer? Is that when it got serious? Son, I'm just saying, if it wasn't serious, it's interesting that it's serious now. She's a woman with 3 kids. I don't know if she's previously married. I don't know whatever. I don't know their dating situation, but it's a very interesting story that suddenly someone who prioritizes these Christian values is with a woman with 3 kids who's unmarried. Now, I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it doesn't fit his program unless she's been divorced. I don't know. Don't want to speculate about her. Want to focus on Tim Scott and the idea that he pulls out this white woman. And I'm thinking, Timmy, you're not white. Guess what? It's not enough to just pull out a woman. You could put out an Indian woman, you could put out a brown woman, in particular, you could put out anything but a white woman, but you put out a blonde white woman. If them people in the South don't, if them people in the South think your black ass is gay and won't vote for you, do you think that them racist people in the backwoods and people marching in Charleston, them people who say blacks will not replace us, Jewish people will not replace us, these anti-Semites, these anti-black racists, you think these people are going to be excited to see you with a blonde-haired white woman? You think that's gonna make them vote for you? They're gonna say, "Oh, he's down with us. He loves white women too. He loves blonde women too." No, they still think you a Negro, and I'm being polite. They still are unhappy. So, Tim, your last ditch effort to make this race work by showing that you have a girlfriend backfired because you still are so ensconced in whiteness that you believe that white skin and blonde hair can save you. It can't save you with Donald Trump trying to align yourself with him. It can't save you when you fight for white people's interests over black people. And it damn sure won't save you when you bring this white woman on stage as your girlfriend from the different school who got a break from her modeling tour to come and show everybody who she is. I'm not throwing no shade. I'm just saying I don't I don't think that was the right path, Tim Scott. So Tim Scott, I love you. I appreciate you. Better luck next time, but I hope you learned some lessons.